Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the APPtechnology webinar, where we'll talk about the challenges and outcomes for universities. My name is David Mays, and I'm one of the co-founders and managing directors of APPtechnology, and it's my pleasure today to talk to you about some of the ways that we've helped universities. So today's agenda, we'll be talking about challenges that we see across every company in the application packaging world. We'll walk through three examples of real universities and some of their challenges. Hopefully you'll spot that you're not alone with some of these. And then we'll share 9 steps that we've helped universities with towards their modern management goals. Then we'll revisit those university examples to show you how they got there and whereabouts they are today. And then we've pulled together top 10 questions to consider before looking for a partner, if you're considering it. And then we've got some evaluation options at the end. So what's been the evolution of endpoint management? Hopefully none of this on here will be too scary and understandable, but certainly we started out with a very physical and manual installation system from floppy disks and DVDs. Then we worked across to local network installs. Modern management kind of started with SCCM at scale across the universities and the enterprise, and where we find ourselves today, which is a cloud-first strategy with tools such as Intune. But the end goal for any IT team today should be to reduce the team size, be far less hands-on with application management, and have as few people as possible, but now possible to orchestrate application management across thousands of devices, literally from anywhere. So what challenges do we see across every company that we work with? There's been an 11% year-on-year increase in application packaging frequency. Rather than big application patches and releases, they're now being done almost weekly, certainly bi-weekly, coming in for the key applications. Vulnerability exposure is now very public news. We've got to think about the team at Marks and Spencer's and their current challenge today. Not only a massive hit to their bottom line, but also to their reputation as an online retailer. As new tools come onto the market, such as Intune, it creates their own mini projects, such as moving applications into them and training for your team. And the true cost of deploying an application is rarely understood. So we'll deep dive to that. So looking at the application packaging timeline as we see it. So this is based on years and years of data that we've had from the point of requesting an application to actually getting it out there, monitoring and retiring it. That's what we typically see most universities and private sector companies doing. But anything over 80% of the actual effort into getting that is in the actual discovery of the application, getting the application packaged and ready for testing. That's a big chunk of the effort, and that's common across most of the companies that we work alongside. So what specific challenges do we see across the universities? There's often a term time panic with many universities, we find, tending to leave their big updates to applications, keeping everything in a stable state until the summer term. That creates a finite window to get a lot of work done. You've got a lot of bespoke programs, applications that have been written by in-house teams and developers, which have been there for years and slowly updated. You've got a huge range of devices, from physical desktops in lecture rooms through to bring your own tablets for the students. But your students are also used to very modern tech now. It's just the way that we are. And they will rate you publicly on forums. How quickly can they get their applications? Are they using the latest versions? And they're sharing that information very publicly with their peers in other universities. So in terms of a quick poll, if we can, just to make it a little bit more interactive, if you don't mind just popping into the chat window how many apps are currently in your environment and how many of those are physically managed by a tool such as Intune or SCCM, just to give us a bit of a flavour of where we are. Okay, thank you for that. So let's just deep dive a little bit into some real world challenges that we've seen where we've worked alongside universities, the problems that they were facing and the impact that it was actually having on their environment. So first of all, let's meet Matthew. So Matthew's problems are, as we talked about earlier on, most of his application updates were being held off until the summer term. creating a finite window. And Matthew had to get over 180 applications patched up and updated and rolled out to his students and users in that finite window. It's also the time being the summer when most of Matt's team would actually take their holiday with a family, leaving a very skeleton crew to actually get the work done. So what was the impact for Matthews University? So as application owners and sponsors returned, they were facing a mountain of testing in UATs and questions to be done before the application could be rolled out. Key projects in Matthews University were also put on pause or held off during this period, but the cycle was just repeating every year. It was a bad habit that they got into. Next, we worked with Peter. His problem was he'd come from the private sector and into the university world. He realised immediately that there was massive underuse of the deployment tools that had been paid for and should be being used. Most of the applications were still being installed by engineers physically or remotely, or even worse, the end users and students simply pointed to a link to install an application. And the bad habits of it's easier to do this, Peter, because we've always done it this way, was something that Peter typically heard. And there were no common standards across the team. So different people, different teams were handling applications in different ways. And there was literally no training within the environment on the modern ways. So the impact on Peters University, the updates for applications were taking days to deploy, leaving vulnerabilities, creating very poor user experience, and vulnerabilities were often still being uninstalled by engineers by hand. And new joiners could wait for 2 weeks to get a new device provisioned and in their hands. And probably something a lot of people may be familiar with, single people would own a single complex application. So when it needed to be updated, the typical reply to Peter was, look, only Steve can package that application because he knows all about it. That had to stop. And then finally, Sue was brought in to manage the project to move applications away and into Intune to migrate and update them. Due to Sue's team size, this migration could only take place when time was available for the team, creating two parallel environments, SCCM and Intune, running side by side. There was a lot of duplication taking place. Sue didn't need to outsource entirely. She just needed extra hands to actually get the project done and migrate onto the new system. The impact on in Sue's university, she had two environments running, twice the supports cost, twice the duplication of efforts, but importantly, the new tools which have been promised to the board and the enhancements they could bring, they were just not being realised until one could be turned off. So again, just into the chat window if you're comfortable doing it. So do you know how long it typically takes for you to get an application from the point of request, from the point when a student or a user needs that application to it actually appearing live and usable on their device? Some people measure that in hours, some people measure that in weeks. If you're comfortable to do that, just pop that into the chat window. Thank you. Okay, so modern management strategy. So it's happy to share with you some of the checkpoints that we run with when we're engaged by a university, the way that we start off and the way that we help them start to their journey towards modern management and solve some of these problems. When we're called in, we typically break it into 3 stages. First of all, we look to fix the foundations. So we help create a roadmap to maturity. So what will modern management look like in your university? What will the tools leverage? And more importantly, in what order should the tools be rolled out? But before you can start that journey, you need to understand where you are, where you compare yourselves with against your peers in other universities, and where the gaps are. And then we can help create a roadmap to get you there. Next, you need to enforce common standards across, incredible documentations, and be the best at absolutely everything you can do. And we can help with that with some templates and bits and pieces, but it certainly helps reduce everybody who touches an application further down the line. Those costs are just reduced and reduced as that information library builds up. So that's a key number 2 for us. And then start to get into the package everything mentality. And start to free up your engineers to do what they do. So by auditing your environment and actually looking at what's out there, start pragmatically, look at anything with, say, over 10 installations out there and create your own project to get those applications under management. That will solve the biggest problem of getting applications out there and under management. Once that's done, look at the lessons log, what went well, what can we do better next time, and then create the next project. Look at anything over 3 installs, for example, and then do that as the next project. But the goal is always to get it out of the engineer's hands and get it automated and clickable for deployment. And then we need to remove complexity. How many of you have got applications out there which are just so complex and can only be packaged by one person and are hung together with different dependencies? Let's get that out of people's heads. Let's get the best practices that we know today to actually get that application as lean and mean as it can be and get the retraining on the best standards for the team. By doing that, by fixing the foundations, we can create a better end user experience. Applications are now installed silent in the background without an engineer peering over somebody's shoulder or dialing phone call. Machines are now being built in minutes, and it frees up your engineers to do engineering stuff, not just installing applications. So the next phase we move into is to adopt the round-the-clock mentality. Real world events happen. They do for any business, but packaging should be happening all year round, not just as this massive lump at the end of the year. So it shouldn't revolve around your holiday planner. So we can help build that system in along the journey. You should look at balancing your team. Look at that end-to-end process. Understand each stage and who's best to do it. So you can then concentrate your best people on the IT projects that they're best suited for. Once you understand and you've balanced your team, you can then identify what we call time thieves, as we referred to earlier on. What's actually taking the most time to actually do? What's the big handle turning operation that we do that monopolizes some really clever people in your team? And you may be able to spot opportunities to actually look at outsourcing that part of the project or different parts. But if you can get those repeatable bits under control, it will give you far more time for your projects. Your costs are now becoming controlled. But importantly, when you get your budgets through, you can accurately and predictably budget for the year, if not 2 years ahead. And then finally, once those are in place, we can start to embrace automation. An application shouldn't just be set and forget. It shouldn't be deployed and forgotten about. Who's monitoring that application? If a vulnerability is identified, who spots that? Or is it your team just waiting for an email from the vendor to come through? So there's lots of ways that you can automate that process to monitor the applications and look out for feature updates or vulnerability. And by doing that, you should be able to start to set your university KPIs. If vulnerabilities are spotted, you can work towards cyber essentials and actually get it from identification to live in the environment within 14 days. For some, we do that within 7 days of vulnerability, just automatically in the background. And then feature updates, enhancements to applications. Do they need to go out immediately? Do they need to go out within the quarter, within the term? That's your decision. But by setting a KPI 25 days, you can monitor your team and its effectiveness. By doing stages 8 and 9, IT should just happen. Patches and automation just happen in the background. You can prove to yourself and to your board that you are patched and show them a breadcrumb trail of the decision from vulnerability release right through to the decision to deploy that vulnerability or the feature update. And it enables you just to get on with projects knowing it just happens in the background. So by doing that, how have we and has Matthew helped solve his problems? So remember Matthew at the start with a massive time crunch. With his grumpy application sponsors repeating every year. So Matthew solved that by looking at his list of applications and the most common applications which are repackaged. And he simply agreed a list of applications that just went into automation. He didn't have to worry about. By capturing key discovery applications once for those applications, he only had to sit down with his applications sponsors once and capture that information, the test scripts, for example, how it hangs together. So it meant that further down the line, those application sponsors weren't being interrupted again just for a minimal update. So all Matt's team now have to do is just simply test an application, get it ready for deployment. And importantly for Matt, he could budget all of that at the start of the year. Working with Peter, remember his application was taking days to deploy. There was little use of the tools that were in hand, but more importantly, over 2 weeks just to get a device provisioned and out to his users. So Peter adopted that package first mentality rather than the default of just giving it to the engineers and for them to create a link or a manual install. It automatically started to go into the deployment tool. Doing that once meant that further updates, further deployments, new users could just be done at a click of a button. So packages are now deployed in minutes and not days. And new devices were provisioned within hours and not days. That created an incredible end user experience and for the students too. By implementing common standards across all of the team, it didn't matter whether it was in the house team or the external team, the quality of their package and the application was the same. And finally, Sue, with the challenge of migrating all of those applications across in the two environments to support. Sue solved this by realizing all she needed was just extra capacity, not actually skills. So it was Sue pragmatically gave us a list of applications that just needed doing, and we gave her the actual capacity to do that. It meant that the new tool Intune was actually delivering its functionality. She could prove that to the team, prove that to the university as well, enhancing the end user experience. It was a simple one-off engagement done for a fixed fee. It's all delivered within deadline and then handed back to Sue's team. And that was the end of the project. So there was no lengthy tie-ins, there was no engagement. It was just a point solution to help Sue get that over the line. So as we work towards the end, what we've done here is just collate a lot of the questions. We've worked with universities for years, and we see a common theme of questions that we're asked and challenged on as well before engagement. So hopefully this will give you a takeaway that you can use and consider if you are considering how to improve yourselves, or certainly if you're speaking to other companies to assist you. But I'll re-emphasize the point again. How much does this cost? You can't really compare the value until you know what it costs you yourself. So by understanding your end-to-end processes, each stage of that, the time thieves, and the impact on the team, once you understand that, you can truly understand whether there is value in actually outsourcing and in part of that process. You need to ask what you actually have to commit to. Can you flex in real time as your university changes and as the cycles change, busy years, quieter years? Can it flex in real time? And will you be penalised if you don't actually use that service? Where is your university data kept? Is it kept on UK shores, or is it bouncing around the planet to wherever the cheapest place is to help? And do you offer a warranty on the work that you do? And how do you see the work going through in progress? Is it simply, say, an Excel sheet which is emailed to you weekly or monthly, or is it something that you and the team and the board can actually just say have an online portal to see and reorganize your application priorities? Often the trapdoors that we see, and good questions to ask, is do you actually guarantee the price, or are there any complexity anomalies in there? Or is it a single price per application? And if you do need an application quickly, are there any emergency fees that you've got to consider? And do you, as a university, have to provide some of your packaging licenses, or are they supplied as part of the price on there? Often, as you know, the cost of packaging license is not cheap. So that's a great question to ask. And do you challenge complexity to streamline our packages, or do you replicate our bad habits? So if you give an external company a bad package and they just simply repackage it to those standards, or are they actually going to challenge you and just say, look, we can really get this one working in a much better way if we do that? So look out for companies that are going to challenge you and help you get towards that modern management and remove complexity from your estate. And then finally, what's your success rate? How good are you? How can you prove that? And can you reference other universities? And can I speak to my peers and actually say, you've worked with these people, are they good? So they're great questions. And they're the common themes that we're asked by the universities that we're engaged with. Okay, so to wrap up, two things to consider. As we've been thinking about the way that we work with universities and over the years, what we tend to do is the jump on point of how do I know whether it's going to work for me? How do I understand that? What do I need to engage to understand that? So we've come up with an offer. It will enable you to evaluate the process, see firsthand whether it's right for you, whether it's right for the team, right for your university, and see end to end how the process can work. So all we ask is, You upload us 5 applications, good range between simple to complex applications, and you can smoke test how the process works. It's very easy to procure via the G Cloud. There's absolutely no obligation to it. If it works, hopefully it'll start a great conversation where we can work together. If it doesn't work, hey, there's no fee for it from there. It does have a big cost to us, so we have to limit it to the first 5 universities that engage with us. And if you're interested in that, pop your name in the chat window or reach out to us afterwards, and we'll be delighted to start a conversation and explain to you how it works. Secondly, think about a modern management review that we've done with other universities. It's a really positive example to an engagement to bring the teams together to understand what modern management works, how it works, and what it means for universities and what other universities are doing with the new tools. Let's look at where you are today. Where are the gaps today? And let's start to build out a Pareto-based roadmap together with you to get you there. And prioritize those into mini projects to actually get you there. The best buck for your dollar as we go along to help you to get to modern management. Okay, so to summarize, a massive thank you for joining us on the call today. On the right hand side, you'll see just a sample of some of the universities and companies we work with. We're really proud of that list from the universities, and as you walk down the high street, some of the well-known names on there, they are being powered and the applications are being done by APPtechnology. So we're really proud of that. If you are interested in starting a conversation with us or to take advantage of that packaging trial, as I said, no obligation, just pop your name in or we'll reach out to us afterwards. And just to let you know, in our next webinar, which is coming up in August, we'll be talking about hardening of security on your endpoints, how that can be done and how that can be enforced as well. So hopefully you've got a couple of takeaways out of today. Hopefully this is the start of a conversation. So thank you very much indeed for your time, and we're very much looking forward to speaking to you in the meantime. Thank you.